TK to YouTube. TK. Okay. Female reproductive anatomy. Okay. So we just went over the male. Let's talk about the female. Okay. Because obviously there are a lot of different names here, but as we'll kind of see here, there are a lot of similarities between the female and also the male. A lot of homologous looking structures. Okay. So let's scroll down. So looking from a sagittal cut here, and let's see. They have this little sagittal cut for us over here, and they do. Okay. So looking sagittally, okay? So what do we have? So from the external, we have these things called the labium minus, labium majus, or the labia majora, labia minora, okay? Those are interchangeable terms. Labium refers to the lips, okay? And as we can kind of see, we'll look at, what's a better picture here? Oh, not this one, this one. This one's a better picture, okay? So this picture here is actually trying to define like the actual lips of the vaginal region itself. Okay, so the labium majora or the labium majus, okay, exists on the external side. Okay, so it's the most outer region of the actual vaginal region itself. The labium minus or the labia minora are the internal lips. Okay, we can see these ones right here. Okay, so we have these ones are the external. These ones are the more internalized ones. So these ones are a little bit smaller. These ones are bigger. Okay. So another structure that we have here is called the clitoris, and this is a really unique structure. Okay. So this is a homologous structure to the penis in males. Okay, meaning that it has the exact same structure of it. Okay, it looks different, but it has the same anatomy. Okay. This structure is strictly only used for sexual arousal in females. So males don't have anything like this. Okay, but females do. And I think the process of thinking of why it exists is because sometimes intercourse can be a little painful for females, especially. So they have a variety of different structures here. The mons pubis, for example, is an extra cushioning of fat for the actual intercourse itself from the actual thrusting maneuver. So that way it's not quite so painful for females. And then the clitoris. So intercourse, as I said, could be apparently a little bit painful, okay, for females. So they have this structure here to allow for a little bit more of a pleasurable experience. That way, it's not quite so painful when you're trying to produce an infant. Okay, so we'll take a look at this in more depth in a little bit and kind of look how it's homologous to the male penis because it really is very unique. Okay, so we have that, and then we have the actual vaginal opening itself, which is where the penis inserts itself into. And then if we look more internal, we're going to get this picture. So this is the uterus. Okay. This is where a baby should be implanted, essentially, okay? So babies usually are fertilized by the egg. The egg should implant itself on the uterus for the actual development of an embryo, an eventual development of a human fetus and of a baby, okay? So you have the uterus, okay? So you have a couple different regions we'll talk about, okay? So you have the fundic region, which is not labeled on this model here. It is on a couple other ones. We have the body itself, which is one that's not labeled here once again. You have the cervix, which is labeled, okay? This is the actual entrance and the transition point from the vagina into the uterus. And then if we rotate this model to the side, you can make out and see the fallopian or the uterine tube, and you can also see the ovaries here as well, okay? So let's scroll down here. All right, perfect. So this is a great picture. So now we're kind of looking at the structures in the same posterior view here, okay? So you have the vagina itself, and then you have the uterus here. So you have the fundus, which if you remember back to the stomach, guys, remember that the stomach also has a fundus region. It's the most superior portion, okay? Same thing here with the uterus. They have a most superior portion that is called the fundus. Also has the body. And then not labeled here, let's go back to that last picture here real quick. Oh yeah, right here. So it has the two layers of the uterus. It's called the myometrium and the endometrium, okay? The endometrium, okay, which is, as it says, it's the most internalized layer, okay? It's actually open to the external environment, okay? This is where your egg should basically implant itself, okay? It should implant itself on the endometrium to allow for the development of the fetus. The myometrium, okay, myo meaning muscle. This is the structure, it's a muscular structure, so when you're actually in the process of giving birth, this is what is responsible for producing those contractions, okay? That's the myometrium. It's a muscular tissue, muscular structure, okay? Let's rotate it to the side again. So, unfortunately, the Anatomy Atlas app does not label the specific parts of the uterine tube in particular. But what we can see here is we can see the ovaries, then we can see the fimbriae, which are these little finger-like projections that extend and wrap themselves around the ovary, because this is what will catch those eggs as they are released from the ovary, okay? So it's kind of like a baseball mitt or a softball mitt. It catches those eggs, and then it will slowly move them closer to the uterus, okay? So the first structure it will pass through is the infundibulum, then the ampulla, which is the most optimal region, okay, for egg fertilization, so where the sperm actually punctures its way and fertilizes the egg, and then it will make its way through the isthmus, and then eventually it'll make itself over here into the uterus, okay? So there is a potential pathology that can happen with the fallopian tube. It's called a ectopic pregnancy. So what will happen there is if you have the egg fertilized here, okay, potentially in the ampulla, but then let's say that the egg stays here, okay? So the actual growth and development of your embryo, your fetus actually stays here. It doesn't move to the uterus. Think about what's going to happen. You're having this huge baby. It's going to come and try and take up this entire tiny tunnel-like space. The problem that happens here is that you will have to unfortunately lose one of your fallopian tubes. The problem with that, well, you only have two of them. If you lose one of them, you really only have one other one to depend on for potential reproduction. Because if you lose this one, it's never coming back. So you're relying heavily on the other ovary over here. Okay, so that's what an ectopic pregnancy is. Okay, so if you have an embryo or a sperm and an egg that fertilizes itself in the ampulla, but it stays there. Okay, and implants itself in the fallopian tube. All right. All right, perfect. So we go back to this picture here, guys. So let's go back. We jumped a little bit ahead there. So looking underneath again. So you can see it's not defined here, but you have the mons pubis, which is just a little bit superior to the actual vagina itself. Remember, it's that little extra adipose tissue that allows for hopefully a little bit more cushioning during a potential thrusting motion during intercourse, okay? And then you have the clitoris, you have the vulva itself, which is just the entire region that encompasses both the labia minora, majora, and the vagina. And you can see the labia majora, minora, and then internalized here you have the vestibule, but most importantly you have the vaginal opening, okay? So I want to look real quick and show you guys this clitoris, because I want to show you just the homologous nature that it has, okay? So really, really unique structure, okay? It has all the similar muscles and characteristics of the male penis itself, okay? So what the clitoris is, okay, is this like a little pea-sized shape organ that exists directly above the vagina. And like I said, it only exists for sexual arousal and pleasure, okay? So the reason when I pung it here on the anatomy atlas model, it's called the clitoral glans, okay? Remember, for the penis, for the male, you have the glans penis, okay? It's the head, okay? These two areas are the most sensitive parts, okay, of both the male and female reproductive organs, okay? So very, very sensitive to touch and stimuli, okay? So furthermore, let's look up, okay? We have a clitoral shaft, okay? This is one of the muscles here off to the sides of it, okay? We have the clitoral crus, and we also have the corpus cavernosum. Remember, the penis, once again, also had those two muscles, the corpus cavernosum, right? So these two muscles are homologous, okay? So the males and females both have them, all right? And the clitoral shaft here, also known as your corpus spongiosum for the females, okay? Another homologous structure, because if we have these muscles and they come all the way down, let's hide this prepuce hood. Let's hide this guy. We can see how it has a decently similar appearance to the male penis, right? We have the glans here, looks like the head. Let's scroll up to a male penis real quick. Okay, we have the glans here, right? Has that head-looking appearance to it, right? And then we have the clitoral shaft or the penile shaft, which exists to be the corpus spongiosum. And then we also have the muscles here, right? The corpus cavernosum muscles, okay? So they're homologous. They're different, right? But they have similar anatomy, okay? So females, when they're undergoing development, okay, when you're actually like an embryo, so everybody starts off as males, okay, until your chromosomes differentiate themselves into a male and female. But what happens with the female genitalia is because of all the different hormones coming in, they transform these structures, okay, into being what they are known for the female. So a clitoris, but it originates from the male penis, okay? So very, very unique, okay? How you have these structures, but they all originate and they all have a homologous looking appearance to them because they're similar between the male and female sexes, okay? So very, very unique, okay? Very unique structures. Let's scroll back down here. All right. All right, let's talk about, yes, so some secondary sexual glands for the females, being the mammary glands. So where are those at? Over here. Okay, so the breast tissue. So the breast tissue, it doesn't quite show the lactiferous glands quite so well here. You can just barely make these guys out. Here, let's see if I can hide these. Oh, there we go. Perfect. We'll hide the lymphatic tissue here. Excellent. So what's going on? So inside of the breast tissue for females, okay, which is, why females have them. They're for breastfeeding when you have an infant, okay? So inside of them, you have these mammary lobes or the glandular lobes, okay? So the lobes would actually produce, okay, the lactation or the milk for the infants, okay? So you have these lobes here, and then what you also have are the lactiferous ducts, okay? And then what I don't think is going to be shown here, unfortunately, is the lactiferous sinus, okay, which is like little storage points where you can have milk milk liquid, okay? So you have the lobes here, and then of course you have the ducts. As they move onwards, they go to, let's see, the female breast. As they move themselves over to the nipple itself, okay? So you have the areola, which is the dark pigmented tissue, and the nipple is directly in the center where the milk is able to exit through, okay? And as we saw with that previous picture, a lot of the tissue that is inside of the female breast is composed of a lot of adipose tissue, okay? So females exist with these mammary glands, but they don't actually turn on until you actually give birth to your infant, because at that point, your body will produce a hormone called prolactin, which basically just turns on, all right, all these lobes here. It turns on your mammary glands, turns on the breast tissue, okay? So very unique there. And then we come down to this picture, okay? So this is where things could take a little bit of a turn, but I want to try and explain these guys as best as I can to you, okay? So what do we got? Let's see, ovary. Let's get this picture up here, okay? So the ovary. So this is the actual development of the ovary itself, okay? Or development of the follicle, I should say. So I don't want you guys to pay too much attention to these structures up here, okay? The ones that will make the most sense and the ones that are most important for us are going to be these mature follicles, okay? These big ones. So this one right here, this is a big one that I'm circling here, okay? So all eggs start out very, very small, okay? They all start out as either primordial or primary follicles or oocytes. Then what's going to happen, okay, is those oocytes will then again exist inside of these follicles, okay? And they are going to begin to develop. You have a primary, they get bigger and bigger until you have a mature follicle, okay? So mature follicle has a couple things we want you to know, okay? It has the antrum, okay? Antrum is just a fluid that is inside, okay, helps kind of nourish the egg. A fluid that is inside the follicle that eventually will rupture and allow the fimbriae to catch it, okay? Also has the granulosa cells, okay? Remember, this converts the androgens from the theca into estrogen, progesterone as well. And the theca is the most outer layer of cells, which you can see right here, okay? So upon a time of the month called ovulation, okay, the follicle ruptures and it allows the egg to actually escape, okay? So the follicle is going to rupture, egg escapes, and what's going to happen here is the fimbriae here are going to catch this egg, okay, just like a softball or catches the egg to eventually transport it through the ampulla, the fallopian tube, and everything as it goes and makes its way to the uterus, okay? So actually in this picture, they highlighted everything. Let me go back up here. So yeah, fimbriae, infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus. Perfect. Just so you guys see that there. On that more big picture view, they didn't quite highlight these individually, but you can see it on this picture, which I enjoy. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So that's what happens. And the egg, guys, will move its way to the uterus and hopefully to be fertilized by a sperm. Okay. And then we have this little guy right here, the corpus luteum. Okay. So this is very, very heavily involved in the sexual cycle. Okay. So the corpus luteum means yellow body in Latin. Okay. So this guy is responsible for, has two different fates to it. Okay. It will have two endings. Okay. Ending number one. All right. If the egg is not fertilized by a sperm, okay, the corpus luteum, okay, which is responsible for producing a lot of estrogen and progesterone, will eventually die off and become a piece of scar tissue inside the female reproductive tract, okay? Because if there is nothing for it to give nutrients to, aka like a new embryo, has no reason to exist and eventually will become a piece of scar tissue, okay? That's the fate number 1. Fate number 2 of it, so if an egg is fertilized, okay, this guy is the primary nutrient source for maintaining the embryo for the first 7 to 10 weeks of a pregnancy, okay? So if for some reason an egg is fertilized, it will continue to exist for about 7 to 10 weeks until eventually become a piece of scar tissue. But if not, guys, if there's no fertilization, it'll just become a piece of scar tissue very, very quickly, and it will allow for females to have their menstruational cycle, their period, okay? So that's what the corpus luteum is here for. Okay, identification, perfect. We did all that. So let's do this, guys. Path of the egg as it travels all the way through. We can do this. So, remember, eggs are going to start in the ovaries, okay? We got that one down. Eggs always start here, okay? And then the egg, as we can see here, is going to be caught by the fimbriae, all right? That is going to be number 2. And then it will move itself into the infundibulum, number 3. And then it will move to the ampulla, number 4. And then number 5 over here is the isthmus, okay? Number 5. And then we enter into the uterus, okay? So primarily first, it's the body, okay? The body is going to be number 6. And then, let's get out of this picture. So it's in the body. And then we'll move down to the cervix, number 7. And last but not least, number 8 is the vagina. Okay. Perfect. Awesome, guys. Now let's fill in the female reproductive physiology, okay? Production of eggs, okay? Oogenesis, production of an egg, all right? So every egg develops in the ovary inside its own follicle. Each month, the hormone FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary, stimulates several follicles to grow. Each cell surrounding the egg grow larger and larger and larger, and more cell layers are added. This process is called folliculogenesis, so the generation production of a follicle. Eventually, the follicle develops a tough outer layer, which is called the theca. Theca, which produces androgens such as androstenedione, and testosterone. These androgens diffuse inward and are converted into estrogens by the granulosa cells. Okay, cells that surround the oocyte. Estrogen has many effects on the female body, including growth and proliferation of the uterine lining. When the level of estrogen rises dramatically in the middle of the cycle, it stimulates a surge of FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone, from the anterior pituitary. The LH surge causes the mature follicle to rupture and release its egg, a process termed ovulation. Okay. The leftover cells of the follicle remain. Excuse me. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Oh my god. Choking on my own saliva. Okay. The leftover cells of the follicle remain in the ovary and are transformed into a structure called the corpus luteum, the yellow body. Okay. This structure produces estrogen and progesterone that will prepare the uterus for pregnancy. The newly released egg will enter the uterine tube and travel to the uterus. If sperm are present and one penetrates the egg, fertilization. I need one more I. Occurs when a haploid set of sperm chromosomes, aka the sperm, combines with a haploid set of egg chromosomes, aka the sperm combines with the egg. The fertilized egg, called a zygote, will then undergo several rounds of mitosis over several days before implanting in the uterus. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Okay, so during pregnancy, high levels of estrogen and progesterone induce the development of mammary glands in the female. After a baby is born, these glands are capable of synthesizing and ejecting milk, a process called lactation. All right. The milk from these glands is rich in fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals that are essential for the baby's growth and development. Beautiful. Oh my god. Guys, I am choking on my saliva. So with that, I'm going to end the video here. We're going to talk about the sexual cycle next, and I'm going to get this Cough under control. I'll be back in a little bit.